Hey folks, how's it going? miHoYo recently released this special program for the Inazuma announcement, and I've got to admit it was pretty damn good. Still, there's a couple of things I want to discuss, and most importantly, try and pick which banners to roll on, so let's begin with all the new characters. The trailer alone was completely packed. We got to see Yoimiya, Ayaka is finally getting released, Yoimiya demands my Primogems, Sayu looks really interesting for an animo healer, and we also got a sneak peek at the new Electrobo user Sarah, the new Geobo user Goru, the resistance leader Kokomi, and then of course, Raiden Shogun in all her glory. That is a massive lineup, and it's pretty great that miHoYo decided to throw them all on us, so we're going to have quite a few months to save up Primogems and prepare gear for them. Sadly, it wasn't announced which ones were going to be 5 stars and which ones would be 4 stars, so this next part is going to be pure speculation. Other than the obvious Raiden, I think Yaya is very likely going to be a 5 star. For some reason, the new statues of D7 take after her image instead of Raiden's, so there might be some lore behind it. Sarah could go either way, and it would honestly feel a bit weird to have a second 4-star Electro Bow, since Fischl already exists. Goro looks like a 4-star to me, but maybe that's just because I'm not a furry. Kokomi is looking pretty nice, but she's rumored to be another Hydro Catalyst. She might be a 5-star since she's the leader of the Resistance, but we'll have to wait and see. Thoma looks a bit plain and generic. I think he's likely going to be another 4-star too. As far as the banners go, I honestly hope the 2.0 is the only version in which we get 2 new releases back to back. Getting new characters is great and all, but there's no point to it if you can't save up resources to pull for them. Personally, I'm okay with buying the Welkin and the Battle Pass, but I wouldn't really go further than that. As for the order of release, I'm afraid Raiden is going to come a bit later on, since we will likely follow a main story schedule, so Yaya and Kokomi could be the 2.1 and 2.2 new limited banners, while Raiden would come in either 2.3 or 2.4, depending on Sarah's rarity. The second banner of each version is hopefully going to be a rerun plus a new 4-star character, and other than Albedo, we've got a nice leeway trio waiting for us. If Sarah comes in as a 4-star, I think this might not be that much of an unlikely release schedule. As for which banner I'll be spending my Primogems on, if you present Raiden this way, and it turns out that she's voiced by Sawashiro Miyuki, just like Catalina, Mordred, Monarch, Labrista, Suruga, Yomi, and Psycho, I only have one response. Woof woof. Still, Yoimiya is voiced by Yule, and her Kansai accent just calls to me. So, let's see if I can actually aim for someone else in the meantime and still end up with at least 180 pulls for Raiden. On average, including Welkin and Battle Pass, I'm getting around 233 Primogems per day. I've done the calculations in another video if you're interested. These should be supplemented nicely by the release of the new continent. I'm sitting on 250 rolls right now, and we're halfway through the Kazuha banner, so I should start the 2.0 with around 265 pulls, and I can count on an average of 32 pulls per banner. Like this, I can go 180 pulls deep on 2 banners and still have close enough pulls for Raiden, 130 out of 180. But this is looking at the worst possible outcome 3 times in a row, which one can hope doesn't happen. With a bit more of a realistic and maybe a bit hopeful look, if the soft PT kicks in and I win 2 of the 50/50s, I should be fine to grab myself 4 characters from Inazuma and still have enough rolls for the 3.0 and repeat the process. Sadly, we don't know much about Yaya and Kokomi other than they're both supposedly Catalyst users, but we can go check out Ayaka and Yoimiya and take a look at their closed beta stats. They might be close to release, but keep in mind that all of this could still be subject to change. Ayaka comes in as a pretty interesting sword user. Much like Keqing, she brings her own elemental infusion, except it's on her dodge, so it can have a higher uptime. On the not so bright side, the dodge is the same as Mona's, and unless the animation gets fixed, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable to play around with. Since her beta version, her awakening stat got changed from cryo damage into crit damage, which is going to make her a bit easier to build, especially with the addition of the cryo set and the cryo resonance boosting her crit rate. Her elemental skill is a simple AoE dealing cryo damage and launching enemies in the air, but her first passive adds a 30% increase to normal and charge attack damage for 6 seconds after it's cast. Taking into account the 10 seconds cooldown on it, it's going to be just a 4 seconds downtime, which can be filled by a support character rotation. Her burst is a multi-hitting ball of cryo that travels in front of her for 5 seconds and then explodes. The 80 energy cost for the 5 seconds duration looks a bit weird, but I guess that much like Eula's burst, it's mostly backloaded. Her second passive helps her out a bit with stamina management and also adds a cryo damage bonus for 10 seconds after dodging. Her charge attack damage is very close to Keqing's while also costing 5 less stamina to perform, so I guess her playstyle will be fairly similar. Bringing cryo damage on a small weapon, she won't be causing shatter, so that's going to be perfect for permafreeze comps alongside Muna, Jinshu or Barbara, and maybe Kokomi too later on. Add in a second cryo character for the resonance and an animo character for the elemental resistance debuff, and you've got yourself a team. With Ganyu, she's also going to get another pretty sweet 20% cryo damage bonus, so to me she does look like a pretty sweet deal. As for her constellations, her C1 can reduce the cooldown of her elemental skill when she deals cryo damage, which might come in handy to better upkeep the 30% boost to normal and charge attack damage from her passive. It sounds nice, but again, you can feel that downtime by rotating supports. Her C2 adds 2 extra cryo balls to her burst, each dealing 20% of its damage. It's both a pretty substantial damage boost and it also helps cover more ground. Her C4 lowers the enemy defense by 30% when using her burst, and lastly, her C6 increases her overall damage by 10% per stack, up to 5 stacks for 3 seconds for each crit she lands. That is quite the massive improvement, but again, it's deep into whale territory, so if I want to pull for her, C0 is going to be more than fine. On Yoimiya, we find a nice crit rate ascension and the usual 5 strings normal attack. Like Ganyu, she has a 2-stage charge attack, with the second stage adding 3 homing fireworks to the shot, but her kit doesn't look like it revolves around them. Instead, her elemental skill will infuse her normal attacks with pyro while also increasing her normal attack damage. The 10 seconds duration and 18 seconds cooldown leaves her with a bit too long of a downtime though. Her burst is her only source of AoE damage, inflicting a first hit on cast and marking the enemies with the Horus Blaze debuff, which will let other party members' attacks trigger explosions from it. Each explosion can only occur every 2 seconds though, and it's unlikely to have the perfect timing to trigger it 5 times. Still, that might be a chance to melt the explosions. Passive-wise, her first one adds a bit of a pyro damage bonus when she's got her E active, while her second one grants a team-wide attack buff when she uses her Q. It looks like her game plan is to activate her E, do a couple of normal attack chains, press her Q and leave the place to another DPS character to both make use of the 10-second duration of her burst and wait out the 8 seconds downtime on her E. Her main issue would be the lack of AoE damage from her normal attacks, which is going to make her suffer in any content that is not a 1v1 against the boss. Still, she's voiced by Kana Ueda and I love her accent, plus she's really cute, and that might just be enough of a reason for me to throw a few rolls her way. For her constellations, it's power spikes over power spikes again, with her C1 adding an extra 4 seconds duration for her burst and making it only have a 1 second downtime, and her C2 bringing an extra 25% pyro damage bonus for 6 seconds when she crits. Her C4 feels like the weaker one, only reducing the cooldown of her E when her burst explodes, but she picks up the pace again with her C6, adding a 50% chance to fire a second arrow, dealing 60% of her normal attack damage for every shot she fires while her elemental skill is up. Sadly, only her C1 helps a bit with her AoE issue, but I don't think that's going to do much. If I were a meta slave, she would be a solid skip. Other than being cute, she's also sharing the banner with Sayu, and a healer that doesn't apply pyro or hydro to your own characters might be real nice to have. I don't want to always bring shields around, and getting electrocuted or overloaded is always a bit of a pain. Bringing anemo damage on a fairly short cooldown, some interesting mobility options, and a summon that both heals and attacks when Sayu is off field can make her a really nice addition to any team. As for the rest of the 2.0 update, they've spent a bit too much time on this stream showing off the environment, and we only got some slides for the events and the new content. The main story event is going to bring the usual rewards and a free Beidou. The Theater Mechanicus will make its first rerun from the Liyue Festival, and will finally get a rerun for the Lost Riches event too. This time it will have a new pet Sealy. The Phantom Flow seems to be another challenge event. It looks like they figured the community really likes these pick your own difficulty type of events, so they keep releasing more. The Teapot finally gets some extra value added to it under the form of gardening. We'll be able to get seeds while gathering plants in the wild and reuse them in our abode to grow extra plants. The process seems to take 3 days, but it's better than climbing around half the world for violet grass. The new transforming monsters look fun, and the samurais look like they could be Inazuma's versions of the Fatui. Of course, there's the usual reskins too, like a Hydroseason Mage, a Pyrohypostasis, and the Electro Lava Churl. A piece of interesting news was the addition of a new series of craftable weapons. They look pretty stylish, and it's making me wonder why we don't have a way to use weapon skins yet. The sword is an attack % main stat, and it works well on characters with a short E cooldown, gaining stacks with each cast and then consuming said stacks to recover energy when a burst is used. Might be cool on Keia or the Electro MC. The Claymore is an energy recharge one, increasing the elemental skill damage and consuming 3 energy on an elemental skill cast, but recovering 9 energy over the course of 6 seconds afterwards. It's an interesting way to generate more energy, but I'm not sure who I would use it on. The Spear has an elemental mastery main stat and brings the same passive as the Claymore. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad on Zhanling, but it would only increase Guoba's damage, not her burst. The bow increases normal and charge attack damage by 16 and 12%, up to 32 and 24%, doubling this bonus when the user is at full energy. While it might look like an interesting free-to-play option for Yoimiya, it still loses to the Rust, while on Ganyu you still want the Prototype Crescent. Lastly, the Catalyst comes in with energy recharge as a main stat and grants a 10 to 20% elemental damage bonus upon causing an electro reaction to the party member it caused it with. This one looks pretty interesting even if it's restricted to an electro support. Might want to try it on Lisa or Yae unless she's a hard carry. The 5-star weapons might as well not exist for free-to-play or low-spending players. Many of them sure look great, but I would rather save for new characters to collect and play with. Even the new Epitomized path won't do much to help in that regard. It looks like a system made to prevent serious losses from the heavier spenders of the game, allowing you to pick a 5-star weapon and make sure that you receive it as your 3rd weapon drop if the first 2 end up failing. While it does act like a safety net, so nobody's going to get 7 of the wrong weapons in a row anymore, to make sure that you get the weapon you want, you still need to go in with about 200 draws, which isn't exactly chump change. Of course, a new region also means a new domain and new artifacts, and the first 2 sets released look pretty interesting. The Emblem of Severed Fate comes with an energy recharge and a boost to your burst damage equal to 25% of your energy recharge. While it does take a 4 set to get its effect, with no extra ER, it already surpasses the boost from the Noblesse Oblige. A lot of quick swap characters are going to love this one, Mona especially, since she's also going to double dip into her energy recharge with extra hydro damage. The Shimenawa's Reminiscence comes with an 18% bonus to attack as a 2-piece, finally making the stat available outside of the Gladiator set. The 4-set piece is going to make its wielder lose 15 energy when they use an elemental skill, but increases the normal and charge attack damage by 50% for a 10 seconds duration. 15 energy is not a lot, and it brings a substantial increase in damage over the Gladiator, with none of its restrictions. It looks like it might be decent on characters that have to take the field for a while to deal damage and aren't energy starved like Yoimiya, Hutao or Child. Still, we'll be in here farming for the emblem set, so there will be plenty of drops for this one too. It won't hurt to try them out and see if the 15 energy cost ends up killing it. And speaking of artifacts, the new Mystic offering from the crafting menu looks like a complete scam. While it will let you trade 3 bad pieces for 1 new one, there's no guarantee it'll be any decent. If the drop rates are the same as the domains, you're very likely just going to burn 2 artifacts that could have been used as experience fodder instead. And that was all from this special program. Sadly, still nothing to address the lackluster endgame content and no long-ish term grind to work for. Which means that once the exploration of the islands dries out, we'll be back to the daily routines of missions, burning resin, playing the current active event and logging out. Hopefully they're going to start working on it soon. The game is approaching its first anniversary after all. Alright then, that's going to be it for me for the moment. As always, thanks a lot for watching, let me know what you think about the upcoming stuff in 2.0 and see you soon. Ciao!